Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and Marvel's Moon Knight's most chilling contribution to the MCU yet has been Ethan Hawke's villain Arthur Harrow and the mythological being he channels, Ammit, the Egyptian devourer of the dead, who judges people's past, presents, and futures upon cosmic scales, and upon failing that morality test, your soul gets... Tell him, Stephen. And our friends at Shortboxed are giving away the first solo Moon Knight comic from 1976. Stick around to the end of the video to learn how to enter to win that. On the spectrum of Marvel villains, Harrow and Ammit fall somewhere between Thanos, who chaotically sentences half of everyone to death with a coin flip, and Kang, aka He Who Remains, and Loki, who, through the TVA, judges outlying violators according to some unseen transcript of their destinies. But it's the connection between Ammit and Kang that we really should take a closer look at, because the specific way they judge and sentence their defendants for future crimes is not only the same philosophy essentially, but hard evidence in both Moon Knight and Loki point to a very possible shared history between these two figures, history that could explain why everyone in the MCU currently faces some kind of cosmic legal trouble. I mean, thank God we now got lawyers like She-Hulk and Matt Murdock on retainer. Now, a reminder that the best way you can support New Rockstars is to get our limited edition Moon Knight inspired shirt, Tomb of the Moon God, which will unlock the option to write in a custom shout out for our after show, NewRockstarsMerch.com. Okay, in Moon Knight episode 1, Arthur Harrow drains an old woman's life force after a negative judgment.
I've been good my entire life.
I believe you, but the scales see everything. Perhaps it's something that lies ahead.
He later explains Ammit's judgment.
She grew weary of having to wait for sinners to commit their crime before punishing them. Would you wait to weed a garden till after the roses were dead? The justice of Ammit surveys the whole of our lives, past, present, future. She knows what we've done and what we will do.
Philosophically, this mirrors the function of the TVA and Loki, which prunes innocent people for merely unknowingly living their lives contrary to what He Who Remains had scripted for them in his sacred timeline. The TVA pruned Sylvie when she was a young girl in Asgard, presumably merely for existing, turning her into a self-fulfilling prophecy of a temporal terrorist.
What was my Nexus event? Why did you bring me in?
What does it matter?
It was enough to take my life from me and lead to all of this. Must have been important. So what was it?
I don't remember.
All of this pruning was directed by He Who Remains, who, like Ammit, passes these judgments with a divine insight into everyone's future.
I already know what's going to happen. I know it all, and I've seen it all.
However, He Who Remains was not ordained by any higher power to do this. He took initiative. He weaponized Alioth, ended the multiversal war between the Kang variants, and established the TVA's judicial hierarchy to execute his vision. The same goes for Ammit. When you think about it, in Egyptian mythology, Ammit is not the ultimate judge. That responsibility lies with Anubis, who holds the scales and weighs your heart against the weight of a feather, and if you fail that, then you are fed to Ammit. But in Harrow's tattoo, Ammit has taken the scales, clutching them in her mouth, in much more aggressive posture. So on one hand, we got one destiny judge who violently took the responsibility of assessing the fates of all of mankind using a weaponized Alioth and 31st century magic. And then on the other hand, another destiny judge who wants to snatch this responsibility from a god above her pay grade using a weaponized avatar and her ancient magic. Now, this connection gets especially interesting when you consider the various nods to ancient Egypt we saw collected as He Who Remains trophies in his void. These include the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx, pyramids that will appear in this Moon Knight series. In Loki, those Egyptian landmarks were nods to the way Kang kept in his kingdom of Chronopolis in the comics relics from his time in ancient Egypt when he used the pseudonym of Pharaoh Rama Tut. He actually used the Sphinx as a vehicle to travel through time. It's actually how Nathaniel Richards got to ancient Egypt in the first place. He Who Remains and Loki reference this past life.
I've been dubbed many names by many people. A ruler, a conqueror, a jerk.
That ruler identity he was referring to was very likely his time as Pharaoh Rama Tut in ancient Egypt. And in Moon Knight episode 1, Arthur Harrow did drop this interesting line about Ammit's backstory.
But she was betrayed by indolent fellow gods, by even her own avatar.
Betrayed by her own avatar. For any human avatar to be able to betray an Egyptian deity, to bypass a divine higher power and collude with the other gods without Ammit noticing, that human must have been someone of remarkable intelligence, boldness, and power among an otherwise superstitious and God-fearing ancient Egypt society. So I think the likeliest suspect for that traitorous avatar, if it is ever revealed in this series or a future title, and if it is a familiar name that we have heard in the MCU before, is Pharaoh Rama Tut, aka Kang the Conqueror. Nathaniel Richards could have used his temporal tech to transport himself back to ancient Egypt to lord over this society, maybe the guy who even helped the ancient Egyptians become such a dominant civilization. By the way, I found it interesting that the Eternals film showed the ways they helped ancient Sumerians, Babylonians, ancient India, the Aztecs, even nods to ancient Greece and the ancient Norse with shoutouts to Thor and Odin, but completely skipped over ancient Egypt, almost as if Marvel could have some other origin story in mind to explain how comic book lore intersected with that real world history. So Kang's experience with Ammit might have been what inspired him to retire from his life of boredom, ruling over human societies throughout history, and instead lord over all of time from his citadel, using a judicial system in the same philosophical framework as Ammit's judgment. And by betraying Ammit and helping the other members of the Ennead lock her away, he would guarantee that only he now has the power to judge people based on their destinies, and that no other divine interference could ever complicate his unilateral vision. And now as we look ahead, notice how both He Who Remains and Ammit fear the same kind of threat. Ammit was unable to judge Stephen Grant, the scales never settling.
There's chaos in you.
Similarly, what did He Who Remains pose as the alternative to his stifling order?
That's the gambit. Stifling order or cataclysmic chaos.
Duos like Loki and Sylvie, Stephen Grant and Mark Spector. These are both chaotic dyads wrestling over control over each other. The same could be said for Wanda Maximoff, and in Multiverse of Madness footage, we are seeing 2 projections of Wanda. All 3 of these duos could be chaos magic incarnate, maybe even what the MCU will call Nexus beings. Threats that do not fit into the mold designed by authorities like Kang, like Ammit, and whatever multiversal judicial body Doctor Strange is now facing, an authority that Wanda will try to destroy. Order versus chaos. And this Kang variant could have even been the author of the Constitution that all these higher powers of the MCU abide by and enforce over their jurisdictions, that Strange and Loki and Cersei are now running afoul of. I guess it'll all just depend, folks, on who exactly will be sitting in those other thrones in Multiverse of Madness. And again, we are partnering with Shortbox to give away a rated copy of Marvel Spotlight 28 from 1976, the first solo comic for the hero Moon Knight. It's currently valued at over $250, and you gotta imagine that that number is gonna be going up, up, and up with all the interest in the Oscar Isaac-led series. Shortbox is the easiest and safest way to buy and sell graded comic books. You can download Shortbox for free on iOS and Android. They have an incredible selection of graded comics, everything from the recent favorites to the most valuable comics in the world. They're currently spotlighting a bunch of issues featuring Moon Knight, including Werewolf by Night, issue 32, the first ever appearance of Moon Knight. All orders are fully protected and insured for buyers and sellers. Thousands of the most respected dealers and collectors in the industry trust Shortbox and use it every day. To enter the giveaway, visit shortbox.com/newrockstars to enter and to receive a promo code for $15 off your first Shortboxed order. Again, that's shortbox.com/newrockstars. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss. Follow New Rockstars. Subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. Thanks for watching. Bye.